Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies, the live video podcast that goes above and beyond the review to get you the most out of a flick. Help you get the most out of a flick you've just seen. It's also, of course, the home of the best chat on the internet. Today, we are going to be taking a look at National Lampoon's Vacation. And asking the all-important question, does it hold up? Okay, before we get into that, there are a couple of items I wanted to mention. Just so's you know, recently I did under Rob's Hot Mic the other night. I did a review, kind of can't call it a deep dive, but I did, I kind of got into some of the analysis of Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress as part of a series I've just started on the films that influenced George Lucas's Star Wars A New Hope. I also may have went on a bit of a rant about the state of cinema today. I called it, the cinema sky is not falling. You will find links to both videos down in the description, and I'll pin it in the top comment later. So before we get into this flick, I think it behooves me to invite my co-host, the man with the most, my friend, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How you doing, sir?
Great. Yeah, just down here in the spare bedroom. If I bounce a lot, I'm sitting on a bed, so that's that's a new one for me. I'm wearing a Don King original. I was gifted this T-shirt.
Wow.
My friend, not Don King, the boxing promoter, but Don King, my friend from Vancouver. And it's all good.
And when you say it's something he designed?
Oh, he's an artist.
Cool.
Yeah, he used to actually do the covers for the Manitoba Writers Guild magazine.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that I had him do
the design and everything
for a ridiculously low contract price. So that's kind of embarrassing he did the montage, sort of cut paper things.
Yeah,
he's quite a good artist. So good artist. That's lame. I think he's a great artist anyway.
No, is he still is he still in business, or is he retired?
He does some comics from time to time. We actually didn't touch. I met him for a little bit. He was showing me his new pad down by Maine in Vancouver here, and we actually had so much to talk about and catch up on, but we didn't
We don't have a link. The bottom line is we don't have a link. We're going to talk about an artist, and no one's going to know how to get in touch.
Okay, I'll figure out a way. Talk to me, and I'll be the middleman for a small fee.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's great. Otherwise, how's everything going in BC? You're looking after family.
Yeah. Good. I did. I was actually halfway through watching your hot mic. Then we had company come over, so that threw things off for about 2.5 hours. And then I had to do an insulin run to the hospital. And
as one does.
So just before this, I went to walk the dog, and of course, there's a red-shafted northern flicker laying prone in the grass. So I ran home to get a box and a blanket. It's a woodpecker, and I ran back up the hill in this heat, and I'm still sweating. So by the time I got back, he had sort of shaken it off, Daffy Duck style or Bunny style or whatever, and was bopping away across the park. So yeah, it's been an adventure.
Could have been just relaxing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
okay,
all kinds of fun.
All right.
But I understand that somebody's made it to the movie theater recently.
Finally, I did. I went Friday.
And
for of course, here in Winnipeg, the theater's been open since last Saturday, so a week yesterday. Last weekend, and it was part of my rant, Jim. I was like, I wanted the theaters to be open, but I've seen everything. Some of it has been out for months. So you're like it's not the same energy, right?
No.
And
Cruella.
so I was, yeah, exactly. Godzilla, didn't I? Oh, wait, and King Kong. I heard about this. But this weekend, Snake Eyes opened up. It looked mildly entertaining. And so I decided, screw it, I'm going to go check it out. Went to the town cinema, our cheap downtown theater. Walked there, easy access. Of course, you've got to be vaccinated, Jim. So you got to have your digital or your physical card with you.
Oh, they do check
you
it.
in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, anybody can get the app. I can check you. Yeah. I've checked myself multiple times because it's fun. Anyway, they do check you for that. Otherwise, it's all pretty slack. 50% capacity, but it was fun, Jim, in that, it's just one of those things I haven't done in a long time, and it was nice to be amongst half a dozen other people because it is it's the middle of what is really a gorgeous Manitoba summer.
Yeah.
That said, and I got my nachos, like the crap I get at the theater and only at the theater. Then I watched the movie, and it cannot recommend it.
No,
Not even sure if I could recommend it as excuse me. Jim, not even sure if I can recommend Snake Eyes as when it comes on streaming. It's, a lot of it doesn't work. I'm not buying the world they've built. It just seems like I've seen all this before. Done better. It really, and I suspect it stuck to the comic roots really hard. But so I go home. I went to an earlier show. I'm still kind of like, oh well, what the heck? I'll check what I'm sure is gonna be a piece of what. Amazon Prime, to absolutely no fanfare, released an Amazon Prime original. Jolt, starring Kate Beckinsale. She is a security expert / bouncer with an anger management issue. And the gag being that she's got to shock herself every now and then. Like she's got a under her shirt kind of shock body thing, And she's got to zap herself to calm herself down. That's kind of the gag. She, of course, falls for a guy, to a degree, who's killed after the third date by some nefarious person, and the whole show's about her fun. She's like, hey, I found a guy who can accept me. I wanna hurt the people who screwed me out of a guy who accepts me. There's the movie.
Yeah.
It is as awful as it sounds. That said, Jim.
Yeah.
Better than Snake Eyes for one reason and one reason only. Even though it's an awful film, and Snake Eyes isn't awful. Snake Eyes is just kind of lame and boring. It commits the sin of mediocrity. It never has a sense of humor about itself. Not once. And it's not like that Golding guy, who most people may recognize as the Dry Eye character in,
Well,
the Gentleman's Club,
Crazy Rich Asian.
Guy Ritchie, Guy Ritchie's latest flick.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah. League of Gentlemen?
Maybe. Okay. Sure. Sure. But it's better because there's a certain kind of it knows what it is, and it has a couple of honest running gags. There's even a great set piece in not the maternity ward, but where the babies. Not that even people do this, but where the babies all go. I don't think they have that anymore, where it's one big room full of babies in baskets. I think that's like just something that's been for movies and television. It would fail Katie Fowler's baby
times 100.
test. Except that it's like it's one of those things where you're like, this film knows what it is and is willing to have some of these bits that are just kind of, hey, this is kind of funny. This is in what's an awful movie, has some highlights. This is a film I could say, yeah, if you're bored, you're going to have a couple of chuckles. It's all pretty ridiculous, but it kind of knows it's ridiculous. And so when they have an opportunity, they lean into the ridiculous. And yeah, it is. It's one of those things where it kind of shows, it's like, oh, better to be bad and commit to a couple of gags than just be mediocre. And that's what Snake Eyes is it's kind of a mediocre film that never has any light moments, never has any fun, or even if it is having fun, you're like, I'm not having fun. You might think I'm having fun now. I am not. So there you go.
That Henry Golding's apparently an up and comer, so it sort of seems maybe it was his chance to star in something, and it just didn't quite come together. But that Kate Beckinsale one, isn't there a Jason Statham movie where he's zapping himself? What is
Crank?
That called? Yes,
but
is
that's
that sort
to
of
keep
a version?
It'd be like
related?
the reverse.
Yeah.
Crank, he had to keep his heart rate above a certain. He's like Speed, except a body.
Yeah, okay.
He had to keep his heart rate above a certain level so that he didn't die. Like if his heart rate dropped, kind of like Speed the bus, except he wouldn't blow up, he'd just die. Yeah. Yeah, no, a different gag, more, a way to self-control. Just like somebody will they'll cause themselves some pain or something to get out of a mental rut or a mental her, it's like, I'm gonna beat you all to death. And of course she's super physically adept and it's all kind of ridiculous. But that's, like, Kate Beckinsale has been in a few comedies, a couple of big movies, but never really, her oeuvre has become being an action star in vampire movies and other stuff like that. She's not, for whatever reason, really, I think this is one of those things where she's looking at it, it's like, yeah, sure, let's do this. We'll have some fun, right? I mean,
like a poor man's Trinity from The Matrix, kind of a little bit.
Well, yeah, or even a poor man's, I can't remember a character's name, but the first Underworld, or it's almost, you look at some of these characters and it's like everyone's trying to be Black Widow. In a way, like this uber physical, kind of ballsy sort of woman with, but still has a heart and, But it has some gags. There's some self-awareness there, and I gotta admit, it's the awful that you can enjoy. You just gotta check out and sort of go, oh my goodness, this is an eye roller. Oh wait, this is funny.
And that's Amazon Prime. It was on.
It's on Prime. Again, released to no fanfare. A
2-movie day.
A 2-movie day. Wow. It kind of redeemed the evening, though. As bad as it was, I knew it was going to be bad, and maybe I had higher expectations than I should have for Snake Eyes, but I don't think I did. Like, I was like, it's a G.I. Joe movie. They're an origin story with trying to get real and gritty.
Yeah.
For G.I. Joe, based on a Hasbro thing. I mean, you might have some of these things, they take themselves too seriously. The lore, the world building and that, and I'm like, we're talking about a character from a toy line. There's not even some ridiculous over the top 40-year-long comic book history. It's a Hasbro character that they just kept slapping more ridiculous backstory on.
Well, I haven't watched Battleship yet, and I don't intend to anytime. You might have been better off watching the G.I. Joe episode of Community a few years back, which was half cartoon and half, Jeff having an Abed-like moment.
Yeah, but wasn't that one in the bad season, like season 4?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a good episode though.
Not a bad episode.
Yeah.
No. I will check that out then. I think I have seen it, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be one of those. Oh, it was fine. Perfectly
Yeah.
serviceable episode. All right, Jim. I guess maybe we should get to the show we're talking about today, eh? What do you think? Yeah.
What the heck?
You're an easygoing man. That's one of the things I love about you, Mr. Jaboyko. Okay, what? All right, let's introduce this babe properly. Okie doke, everybody. Yes, today we're asking the question, does National Lampoon's Vacation, the original 1983, some say comedy classic, hold up? From IMDb, the Griswold family's cross-country drive to the Walley World theme park proves to be much more arduous than they ever anticipated. I would go so far even to say that it was about a man who was perhaps, how do I put this? Let's go to Ellen Griswold. Great quote of hers: "A saint with children, a genius with food additives." Clark Griswold, and how he persevered. It's really a tale about perseverance. Smart remarks aside, back to the film itself. If you look at it's directed by Harold Ramis, written by John Hughes, of course starring Chevy Chase, also starring Beverly D'Angelo, Imogene Coca, Dana Barron, Anthony Michael Hall, Randy Quaid, John Candy, and of course Christie Brinkley in her film debut. But also like Jane Krakowski, Eugene Levy did a bit part. Like it was not wanting for comedy chops, like for people with comedy skills. As far as the social ingredients go, well, let's start it off here. Would it have qualified for a reframe stamp? No, it would not have. Was it union made? Yes, it was. Did it pass the Bechdel test? As a matter of fact, it did. Is it class conscious? No way. Nope. Not the movie you're looking for. So, Jim, I would say this film gets a score of, where are we here? Oh my goodness. I uploaded the wrong one.
Uh-oh.
Oh my goodness.
It's summertime.
Because that's the way that works. Anyway, it got a score. It gets 50%. A score of 50%.
Yeah,
that's what it did. Here we are. Why is it? Oh my goodness. There are times when you're just like, can you give me a fucking break? Pardon my poor language. Anyway, there's the checklist. 50%, which, considering this is a movie in 1983, not bad. And the fact for a National Lampoon made film, which, if you'll remember, the movie about the founding of National Lampoon couldn't pass the Bechdel test, but a movie it made did pass the Bechdel test, and I think in a pretty solid way. So, getting out of control here.
A stupid and futile gesture, which we took a look at last summer, about this time, I think, or roughly about this time.
Yeah, right about this time. And then a few months later, the director of that film did chime in on the Bechdel test and referred us to a clip where they kind of understood. And then, of course, it was several months later that I noticed this comment was on.
And he hasn't spoken to us since.
No.
I'm writing these guys off.
And now we've come full circle on both the Bechdel test, our channel, and National Lampoon. All right. Let's continue. Yeah, Jim, what give us your quick review.
Sure. This one is another one of those, we take a look at these old movies and ones that we're super familiar with, and we're super familiar with the stars. And if you watched SCTV and you watched SNL, you know these guys and their chops, and then even follow them later in their careers. So, Chevy Chase's Community, Eugene Levy, obviously, with Schitt's Creek, et al. So it's almost sort of hard to be objective about this. This is a movie I love. I distinctly remember physical movements that Chevy Chase did when he's looking for the. I still make that joke when he's looking for the gas tank in the car that he's filling up for the first time, and he sees the mom and son, open up the license plate, and there it is. So he takes it and he sort of applies too much force, and it wings the license plate across the lot. I still make jokes about that, and if I'm driving a rental car or something, and the metallic P reference, and there's so much in this that I just there's some things I've forgotten, but there's a lot that I distinctly remember. But it's kind of a great comedy. There's a couple of things that I thought. There's about a minute too long on the video game map at the start, which I guess was that kind of fell a little bit dead. But and also that Christie Brinkley's not given a lot to do, but she just sort of dances, and it's just come hither kind of thing, but without any real kind of personality. But aside from a few quibbles. I did like the musical cue whenever she sort of drove up beside him, but the cast is interesting. I was super surprised to see Jane Krakowski. I'm like, that can't be her, can it? And I
had to look it up. It was like, what the?
Yeah.
Why do I?
Yeah. But pleasantly, too, I thought the kids were really good. I had sort of forgotten. I'm not so fond of the ones that came after, but these two, and especially, I think her name's Dana Barron, she did a great job as the daughter, and I had sort of forgotten about that. There's a couple other interesting things. Sort of the way that the script uses, or the movie uses Beverly D'Angelo, where it's sort of a reversal of sorts. It's not, back in the day, you used to have some flash of nudity for a big summer comedy, and it's actually not Christie Brinkley, but it's Beverly D'Angelo, which I thought A is weird, and B is weird for a Harold Ramis movie, because you don't normally associate that. But the other thing, of course, Harold Ramis, and just what a great talent, and I've watched him from his SCTV days, so and I had forgotten that he directed this, so you can sort of see those. It's all about chops, this movie. It's about Chevy Chase had the chops back then. He's sort of an angry old man now, but he had them back then. Harold Ramis knew what he was doing. Even Eugene Levy had a brief scene. It was great. Metallic P, it was so. I want to read
John Candy.
Rusty? John Candy.
Can I call you Rusty?
Doing that a vicious kind of voice. I just want to read something really quick here. I called it up, and I think I've cited it before. Stephen Tobolowsky is a character actor. He's been in tons of stuff. He played Ned, the insurance salesman, in Groundhog Day. And he was in the most recent iteration of One Day at a Time, the new Norman Lear version that ran for a few years. But when Harold Ramis passed away a few years ago, he wrote a beautiful little piece in Slate that we can make a link to. But he says here, he taught me a lot about comedic directing in those few weeks. I asked him if he thought I was a bit over the top in my characterization as Ned Ryerson, the obnoxious insurance salesperson, forever accosting Phil Connors. Harold smiled and shook his head. No, Stephen. In comedy, you have the stew, and you have the spice in the stew. Bill is the stew. He has to play it straight. You're the spice. Have fun. And then one more little bit. He says, when the scene called for Bill to punch me out on the corner, I went to Harold and asked him if there was anything he wanted me to do. He leaned in and whispered with that half smile, do whatever you want. I'm setting the camera up wide, no close-ups. Comedy only happens when there's a relationship. We'll see both you and Bill at the same time. Comedy lives in the two shot. And that's such a beautiful little piece. The whole article is really, I love that article. It's a great one, but we'll put a link to it. So
you bet. Okay, well, there's your quick review. Quick.
Sorry, not quick at all, but
nope. All right. For myself, Jim, you know what? There's enough for both sides. There's kind of an argument out there that the comedy doesn't age well. And there is enough in this for both sides of that argument. Some of it is like, oh, dear Lord, I don't remember, or I remember this scene now, and oh, this is not good. At the same time, there's still some bits, some physical gags in that where I'm like, I'm laughing. You know, it reminds me of the same laughter I had. And yeah, this is one of the early films, adult comedies that I saw. I would have been 16 at the time when it came out. And so, I can still laugh at it and laugh in that kind of almost an uproarious manner. I was amazed to see Jane Krakowski, but also, once again, amazed by Anthony Michael Hall. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dana Barron did deliver. Absolutely. Yeah. But Anthony Michael Hall, you see that same level of charm, the same, that charm and that ease and that he is like, he's a preternaturally talented, and the way he can play off, like how he holds his own with Chevy Chase. And he's all of 14 or 15, like at the time. He was probably younger than I was watching the movie. And he's just, it is casualness in that. It's like,
you think mom's gonna buy that? Yeah, exactly.
Like, just and so there's moments like that where it's like, I am so glad we picked this film. Then there's other moments like, that's terrible. Couple of, to quote somebody messaged me in this weekend who might show up later in the chat, cringeworthy moments where it's like, ooh, that's not funny.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, I don't remember, and I think it's important, and why some people might like the later movies, but not this one, where I'm thinking this is actually one of the interesting things about the film is Clark Griswold is the villain of this piece. He really is. And as much as on one level you think he's just a big caricature, and we'll get more into detail. I think I have an argument to make here. Maybe not an argument. Well, yeah, an argument. He's the villain, but he's a villain we know. Like National Lampoon punches down a lot, and I think it's one of the weaknesses of this film. There's a lot of punching down, but they really do pick him as the villain. And there's a part of me kind of, what's a little ridiculous? No, I've met this guy. And I've even met this guy. He's ruined a barbecue or two. You've all met this guy at a suburban barbecue where they're Clark Griswold, and where you really are going, what are you? You're looking at the spouse, even the children who seem kind of slightly embarrassed and more on the ball than the old man is. And you're like, what are you people doing with this ding dong? And they made a movie about this ding dong.
Yeah.
It's John Hughes going, oh, I grew up with some of these jerks in Grosse Pointe or, suburban Detroit. And so, there's my quick take. And you're absolutely right, Jim. I thought of Harold Ramis, but I thought of him, and you see this in this movie where he goes, X may not be good filmmaking, but it's good comedy. And so in a comedy, go for the laugh. Do not worry about the filmmaking. Go for the laugh. Just keep people laughing. It'll all work out. And I'm really oversimplifying what he said. I've never been able to find the piece where I read him, talking about this. I think it was maybe talking about Orange County.
Okay.
Anyway, years and years ago. But you really see it in this where they're like, nope, it's episodic. It's all just going to set up gags. and there is some commonality in it, and it's not just a skit show, but Harold Ramis is like, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to let Chevy do his thing. Like you said, I'm going to go wide to give everybody room to do their bit. Yeah. You know, it won't be, but no, I need the sensitive look, you know. We can zoom in for that if we really need to do that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I met Dawn of the T-shirt the other night, not all we did. There was a part of the conversation we were just, because we're both big Jaws fans, and he's given me some Jaws merch over the years, but we started talking about Vacation, and he brought up line for line the, you know, hey homies, you know, what he's, you know, things like that. And are they
Holmes? Hey, hello, Holmes.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. And they said, do you think they know the Commodores and all that kind of stuff? Like, he's bringing up line for line, and it was hilarious. Almost like you're reminiscing, but it never happened to you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's move forward then. Is it worth your time? Can you recommend it now?
Well, we'll talk about a few things, but I think so. Like, to me, there was a couple things that did feel fresh. Like, it did. Some of the gags, like Chevy Chase is a strong enough physical comedian that sort of worked for me. And you know, the setup is the family traveling, right? And that's kind of a
slice of life. Little comedy.
Yeah. And that I mean, it's going to be something that people do hundreds of years from now, hopefully. And so absolutely, I would think this is worth your time, and we'll talk about some of the other stuff involved. So.
You bet. Well, for myself, Jim, I'm going to say yes, but I got to qualify it. I don't want to get into the spoiler zone, but there's a gag that is all just, whoa, early 80s bigotry. Like, just, you know, like, it's like, that's hella racist now. Like, just, it's bad. Yeah. And it dives into every trope about, you know, suburban whitey in the hood. Yeah. And it was just awful. A couple other cringers, but only a couple of others. So I'm just, I don't want to make an excuse for the film. I do think it's like, hey, there's going to be a part that, rest assured, if it came out now, we'd be like, who fucking would make this? Yeah. 1983, it was thought funny. Yeah. It is National Lampoon. A whole bunch of white people from Harvard and Yale, you know, who felt that they could make a whole movie crapping on everyone. And they do, except the quote, American Indian, close quote. Yeah. Probably is the only minority that comes out okay. Yeah. Notwithstanding the camel rider. Just like, what the hell? Anyway, so there's my 2 cents. It's worth your time, but be warned. Like, almost like you need a trigger warning before it. Okay, before we move on, Jim, I guess it's time to acknowledge first we are getting into the spoiler zone. So beware. And then let's say hello to everyone in the chat. Of course, it looks like he had to run off. But Walt, here you got to run off, but you might come back. Good to see you. Hey, Underpants from Richard L. Good to see you, Richard, man. But, say that again, Jim.
Seems unlike Richard, but
anyway, great to see you, Richard L. And I'm assuming Katie, Ms. Katie Fowler is kicking around somewhere around. Anyway, good to see you, man. Woo-hoo. And then our once and future, or once or twice past and certainly at least one more time, future guest co-host, Mr. Shashank Vachari, our man in Chennai.
Hey, Shashank.
It was funny. Of course, last week, folks, we did, Jim and I and Shashank overanalyzed part 1 of Bahubali. And I was at the beach and I saw this dude with, some flowing locks and that. And I was going, yeah, but you're no Prabhas. You don't have the hair and you certainly don't have that charming smile.
Yes.
I cannot wait. And it's only a couple of weeks, bit of a spoiler maybe, but a couple of weeks we are going to be looking at Bahubali, The Conclusion, which is also on Netflix. So anyway, great to see you here, Shashank. All right, let's get into the meat of it, Jim. First of all, the craft. Mm-hmm. This has got to be pretty straightforward. Actually, no, I think there's some meat in the craft here.
Yeah.
But you go.
The performances were pretty on point. Like I said before, I don't think Christie Brinkley's given a lot to do, but Beverly D'Angelo, it's such a funny thing, but we'll talk about that in the meeting, how they handle her. But she's not just, it's almost like they're still an active couple, but she's not just the nagging wife. So she pulls off sort of being the foil to Clark, and at the same time, his partner, right? So that I like, but she's given actually quite a lot to do.
One of the best lines. He's a saint with children and a genius with food additives. Back to, like you say, also in a wide enough shot that he's walking by like a big doofus.
Yeah, exactly. Chevy Chase is probably, I've seen a number of his movies, not for a while. And he's somebody that's sort of burned all his favors fairly early in his career. Apparently, he's a legendary a-hole. I mean that in the legally non-binding way, but he had something back then, and he was genuinely. This is why he left SNL after I think one season. I mean, he had a look. He was a good-looking guy. He was funny. He could handle these things, and there's stuff that he does.
Screen charm.
Even when he turns to Rusty after the car accident, and his glasses have been cut in half, and he's still talking, and one of them slips, slowly off his face, and just little things from here. And he's through the whole movie, he's doing kind of a "Hey kids," like he's doing a bit as well, and he's fully committed to this bit, and at the same time he's sort of goofy, and he's willing to look like a dork, basically. So that's great. I love the kids. The supporting characters. Imogene Coca is kind of interesting because looking at her and surprise, her parents were vaudevillians, so she's got all the mugging. She's got all that wah wah looks to the camera and stuff like that. But apparently, she was
that woman worked her glasses.
Oh yeah,
she worked them. Yeah.
And she's an Emmy winning, I believe, actress who was on Sid Caesar's show of shows, I believe, and an early inspiration for people like Carol Burnett, etc. And you can totally see that, I think. And so this is one of those things where I think somebody said, hey, Imogene Coca, let's get her in a movie, as a nod to the old days. Somebody like Ramis, who knows his stuff, I don't know this. I'm supposing it, but I think she
also had serious billing. Like, I think even at the time, she still had. They're like, okay, we got to have somebody with chops to really be. Because you're thinking about it, Jim, like this. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to hold. I need to put a pin on Ms. Coca because there's a great story angle here.
Yeah,
and I don't want to blow that now. So what else? What else did you think about as far as the craft goes?
The craft, the soundtrack was great. I
still got that main.
The Holiday Road. If you
Holiday Road.
I downloaded it a few, and it sort of has long portions of those dogs barking. It's like they have it on the on the keyboard, and they just press it, and it's dogs barking to various, So it sounds better in the movie. Long story short, and it is a great song. It's a great road song. It has that.
Well, I think you almost need to download the movie soundtrack because there is a few other tunes that kind of set the mood and.
Yeah, exactly. So that's they did a fairly good job with the soundtrack, I think. And not to be, I forgot to look up the director of photography, but they use that. I'm not sure if it's Monument Valley or not, but those desert scenes, there's just a couple of clowns in the foreground, and you have these sort of this eternal landscape that you've seen, Stagecoach, and all these other movies, all these John Ford westerns and stuff. This beautiful Arizona backdrop, and speaking to the eternity, and you have these dorks in the foreground with their horrible truckster lying in the dirt with 4 pop tires. But yeah, so and just shots and setups like that. The beautiful one, and this is another one I still remember and I still talk about, is when the camera shows the kids in
the Wagon Queen family truckster.
Yes, yeah. There's that great shot where it shows, I think, the girl asleep, goes over to Rusty, he's asleep, goes down to the mom, she's asleep, and goes over to Chevy Chase, and he's asleep whilst driving. And just like great setups, like that. So nicely shot too. I wasn't really concentrating on things like color palette and things like that, but just nicely, for a comedy, I thought it was fairly nicely shot. A lot of helicopters. Of course, they would use drones these days. You'd know more about that, but a lot of helicopter shots. So, kind of interesting. Filming something 30 years ago or more.
Yeah. Myself, Jim, I think they committed to the props. Mm-hmm. The props really were, and especially... Oh my goodness, I got to put this back on the screen, Jim.
Yeah.
Just look at that ridiculous thing.
Don was telling about his cranky father's reaction to that. He goes, "Yeah, we were watching it. My dad walks in the room. He goes, 'What's with all the headlights?'"
Well, it's in the Wikipedia piece here. I'll take it off, but in the Wikipedia piece, it talks about they took a Ford LTD Country Squire, and then took the lights from another one, like another set of lights, swapped them upside down and put them on top just to really emphasize it. But I also think that is the inspiration for that 70s show's the wagon that the kid gets.
Yeah.
Just that whole light, that 70s mainstay, the station wagon. The minivan of its time.
Mm-hmm.
The props, but even Walley World, the character, I think they did some great matte paintings, like a real example of matte paintings. There's no way they built that thing. So great matte paintings. The second rate, or I shouldn't say second rate, because it is certainly, Walley World is a stand-in for Disneyland.
Yeah.
Even the character actor who played Mr. Wally, who did it?
I meant to look that up too.
Some Frank McGray. Oh my goodness.
He almost looks like a Donald O'Connor type, but not quite.
Oh my goodness. I can't. Oh, here we are. Eddie Bracken was Roy Wally. Wally. And he had the look, like the hair, the thin, the pencil mustache, it's like
golf clothing.
That's just genius.
Yeah.
So they committed to a vibe. They're also, again, the costuming was realistic. Mm-hmm. At times, I think they dialed up the they dialed up his costuming a bit. Christie Brinkley's is like, well, you know what? How do you dress a supermodel? Like a supermodel. They did not, they weren't going to try and make her look in any way real because it's Christie Brinkley.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, they didn't give her anything to do because there was nothing they were going to be able to get her to do. There's a reason she did not have a long career in film and television acting. It's not like Elizabeth Hurley, who model became actress and actually did some stuff, like carry half of a movie. I don't think Christie Brinkley could have held her own against Chevy Chase. Yeah. Where, meanwhile, you got Beverly D'Angelo, who totally did. Totally knew how to play against him, totally knew how to set him up. The whole movie is about Chevy Chase, the man, not the town, in Maryland. I kind of, it's kind of a cringeworthy gag now, although I think that movie may have been the reason I got the poster. I had the poster of her in a one-piece bathing suit over my bed when I was, that was at 14. So it must have been just A&A Records putting it up and going, I want that. Because I think that's what makes my room classy.
Wait till the girls see this.
Although, who knows? Maybe there's a part of me at 14 going, no girl's going to ever get to see the inside of my room. I can put whatever I want because I do not have the skills for any woman to get anywhere near my bedroom. But even Brian Doyle Murray, Eddie he's got a bit, everyone who did their bit well, and they kept it tight enough. The later movies with Dennis Quaid. Yeah, it was Dennis Quaid, right? Randy Quaid. Sorry, Randy Quaid. The later movies where they're giving these people more, and it's oh God, this is bad. But you get enough of all these players doing a bit, and they do it just to the right level, just funny enough. And brought in strictly to make who is otherwise the villain of the piece somewhat sympathetic. They all deliver that. I think the look, again, another one of these 80s movies where you go, yeah, that's a lot of, I remember those alligator, you know what I mean? You could pop the collar if you wanted. Not as many people did as the polo shirts. Thank you. Polo shirts. But the fashions weren't as ridiculous as they're kind of presented, in later, looking back. They don't look as bad. The colors it's all shot comedy, wide, lots of bright lighting, let the performers do their thing. So that the cinematography I thought was fine, but in the right way. The cinematography was calibrated to the piece. You're not looking for every frame of painting when you're doing comedy. It's not, unless you're doing something like a Wes Anderson, where in a way the filmmaking is the comedy as much as it is what the players are doing in the frame. So I thought I did think it's the soundtrack, and they're even going to use sound effects to kind of put a button or to put a little exclamation mark, a little sizzle on a gag, and they didn't do it as much as I remember, which is maybe why I remember, they really used that, because they didn't use it in every joke. It was never a wah, 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 it wasn't a lot. The soundtrack was good. Wasn't as great as I remember. It was still pretty good. Yeah, I thought that craft was pretty solid. And they knew how to commit to certain bits. that wagon, which they was even the metallic pea. I did not get the joke when it first rolled around, but there's pea soup. And Eugene Levy is, do you like what? Don't like the metallic pea? And that grease ball car salesman.
Yeah, yeah, and he played a few greaseballs on SCTV too.
Yeah.
But in terms of the car, speaking of color palette, they actually did make the car stand out for those long helicopter shots. So you had this big green station wagon with the multicolored luggage on top, and you knew what you were looking at. Even from 500 feet up, with on a highway or something like that. So that was well done. And the other part I liked is Brian Doyle Murray. I mean, he's on screen for about 2 minutes, but basically he's the guy when they're signing into those little cabins, and he's
tense.
When you find these, well, they're almost like those authentics that they're called, like in
Parks Canada has them.
Yeah,
you can see
Mountain.
them. Yeah, Riding Mountain.
Where they're wood frame tents that with a few amenities, but that
a wood frames gazebo with but
that he is eating something while they're signing in, and he's spitting his watermelon seeds out. When you're doing this yourself in that kind of life, you're always catching somebody in the middle of mealtime, or you're disturbing them. I mean, he didn't put too much didn't put too much on that, but it was still like he was being interrupted from eating his watermelon. So just little touches like that, and he's much younger then too. I'm used to the older Brian Doyle Murray, but pretty. I was also going to say, and I just saw this now, Chevy Chase, the Community. Anthony Michael Hall played the bully in Community, and they had a big fight scene. So they would have, the father and son in this movie would have, I don't think because primarily Anthony Michael Hall was going after Jeff Winger, but they would have been in the same brawl, which is kind of hilarious.
An interesting little moment. Although Anthony Michael Hall has developed, has a reputation of a hardworking, regular actor guy.
Yeah.
Chevy Chase still thinks he's a star from 1978.
Yes, exactly.
I would say, before we move into story and meaning and everything, Jim, I would say that I think this is a turning point in Chevy Chase's career. Like, Fletch, I think, came out a year before this. There was another Fletch, but after this, like, his movies were a lot of these things, and they almost changed the character a bit from kind of like they changed Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson was a lot more, he was a different character in the first, especially in the shorts, and then even the first season or two, and then the lovable doofus, Homer, whereas before he was. And I think they kind of went the reverse here, where it's like, this guy is clueless. He is the author of his own misfortune. And then later on, it's like, okay, Clark, but you got to bring the family together or save I think they take a lot of the bite out of his character. But also, this is where Chevy Chase is like still just kind of showing up he does his shtick now. Like, you do see him at both he's not at the nadir, but he's just past the zenith of his powers. And it's starting to come down where you're kind of starting to go, this is, at this time, sort of great Chevy Chase, what they paid for, but you're not seeing anything new anymore.
Yeah.
And later vacation movies was like, he's just showing up to do his thing and do his little dance and off he goes. It does feel like the National Lampoon angle to it does feel different than other productions. There's that sort of a certain look on the outside. So he's got a certain look of a handsome suburban dad, but on the inside, he's kind of crazed, right? And there's that sort of like and insecure.
Well, and the kind of thing that all Mad Magazine did as well, where you've got the tie and the fedora, a little bit further back, but really you're just as insane as everyone else. The suburban kind of the normality of 50s America covered a lot, but that sort of that sort of
Well, I think they
demented characters still live there, you know.
Yeah. Well, but I think it's almost you could kind of see. Well, actually, we're.
Yeah.
You know what? This has got nothing to do with craft anymore, so we're moving on. What about the story? Or lack thereof.
I mean, you don't.
I don't even think there's acts really. There was a mid-low point, a mid point where it's like, oh, this is only getting worse. Here is the last warning before they descend into the abyss.
Yeah, I mean, with a road, I was engaged through the whole thing. For a road movie, all you're basically doing is going from point A to point B, and I did like those little, Kansas, Dodge City, Kansas, and somewhere in Arizona when they get lost. You don't really need much more than that for something like this, I think. But the interesting thing, and I sort of wanted to ask you about it, and we can either talk about this now or later, Buzz, even though things go wrong, and even though, they basically have, it's one of those best of times, worst of times kinds of situations, a little more worse than best, but it's still, despite everything, it still made me want to go on a road trip. I don't. Did you feel that way as well? Like, it's just like the road. It's still, it's gonna chew you up, but it calls to you. Maybe it's a summertime thing.
Yeah.
But I want to go on a road trip now.
I think it's interesting you bring this up because yesterday, me and a friend of mine, we went out to Grand Beach.
Oh, nice.
For folks who are not familiar with Winnipeg, Grand Beach is the southern part of Lake Winnipeg, a big freshwater lake, see from space kind of nonsense. It's like 10% of our province's surface area, I think, is Lake Manitoba and Lake Winnipeg.
One of the top 10 or 15 largest lakes in the world, I think.
Yeah, great beach until the zebra mussels maybe not wrecked it, but took away a lot of its charms. Anyway, we went there. It was blowing wind, but because it's been so hot, we've had such a great hot Manitoba summer. Mm-hmm. Water temperature's great. We're like fighting surf, Jim. We're there.
Yeah.
My friend and I, we got there at like 8:30 Saturday morning because we figure it's going to be packed. And we're on the road, get our we do the McDonald's thing. We're enjoying that coffee on the way, and you're just enjoying the journey to your goal. Yeah. Then we come back. I had way too much sun. Like you can't there, you might be able to see.
Yeah.
Like I got a lot of sun. Like and I obviously did not use enough lotion. I am kind of burnt here. Where you get so sunburnt, you feel a little nauseous.
Yeah.
I am stiff because we spent a lot of time in the water,
the waves,
playing with the surf and that. I even jammed my ankle once. It's still a little sore. So I'm a little nauseous. I'm really burnt. I'm sore. I'm stiff. And I'm texting my friend. I'm like, worth everything. No regrets.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. I would say though, and this is Harold Ramis is talking about. You could hear him. He wasn't. I don't think he was referring to this film, but he's like. You know what? It's really, and you look at the making of where they're pitching this project. A lot of the studios are going, well, but there's no character growth. Clark Griswold does not grow. He doesn't learn. He's just a persistent, deluded suburban dad.
Yeah,
deluded, bullshitting suburban dad. There's no character growth. There's no progress. There's no story arc. It just goes from one ridiculous thing to another, to another, to another. And it's only his persistence against all common sense And it works out anyway because they're like, well, we're going to have a happy ending because that's what we do. It's like, don't care if it really doesn't make sense. Don't care if it means that he never learns a lesson because he does not. Yeah. That's not the point of the piece. Mm-hmm. It's to, how do we take that suburban kind of a blowhard, bit of a like, I think they kind of emasculate him in a way, like on purpose. And there's some, we can get into into that and the meaning, but it's like, just how much crap can we throw at this guy and still make it funny? If there is a point to it, it's how can we still make it funny? How can we get like, he does not change. He's the same doofus from the beginning to the end. Not even a doofus. That's too kind. Yeah. It's the same deluded maniac. But you get the sympathy, and this is where I want to go back to Imogene Coca. She knew what she had to do, which is to be so awful that you start to side with Clark. Yeah. Even though he's awful. Yeah. You cheer when Ellen, Beverly D'Angelo's character, threatens her. You feel what the kids feel when they're complaining. They manage, and that's how they do it. They make some of these other characters even more awful to make him look good in comparison. Yeah. And I think that is great storytelling, not necessarily big arc, make your movie like this, but to know how to get people from one bit to the next, from one chunk, like scene to the next, to string these gags together, to, and to make sure that he's always on the right side, even though he never is. I think that's the storytelling chops they had. How do you kill a dog in a movie and make it funny? Yeah, yeah. You make that dog a nasty piece of owned by a nasty piece of Yeah. Like so he was
asking for it.
Yeah, they make the misery that's visited upon these characters. The dog's a character. They deserve it.
Yeah, yeah. And even despite the fact, and the cop, who was again on screen for probably about 2 minutes, he did a great job. He's just like, poor little guy, probably kept up for you with
a mile or so
until his little legs gave out. Tough little mutt, and just leeching all the, just dwelling, using your imagination to dwell on how horrible it was. But, all you're left with is an empty leash and no blood. Like, they could have made that so much worse. but of course, the cop goes, I'm going to go back and deal with the carcass.
Go pick the carcass.
Here's your leash. Here's your leash. I'm going to go deal with the carcass. So, fairly well-handled scene. But
it shows where the Ellen character, it's like, no, he was speeding. Like, everyone picks up the play. Or half the play. I want to put this up on the, and here's Katie commenting on this exact moment. After the dog died, Richard said, it's probably for the better. And you know what? Going back to, Katie, I don't know if you were here when I was talking about Jolt, the film I saw Friday night after the Amazon Prime, where it's technically would fail the baby test, but was brilliant. Works. And I think that shows some kind of creativity and scene genius, scene storytelling genius. And killing the dog, making that work. It's like the reverse John Wick. It's how do you make the dog the bad guy?
Yeah. Well, and I was looking at that too and thinking it's 83.
Without it being a horror. How do you make the dog the bad guy in a comedy, in a family comedy?
Russ, go feed the dog. Oh, he's biting me. And they show Anthony Michael Hall, and I thought, it's like when I went to see What's that German one? Is it
Bites.
Sunrise or
Bite him back, Rusty.
that German silent movie where they have a bunch of hundreds of kids standing in knee-deep water in a darkened cellar. And just think, oh my God, what do you do? So they're feeding this, probably a professional acting dog to Anthony Michael Hall, and I just thought, oh, and it wasn't. They didn't show just the, there was no stunt. It was actually him being sort of. Maybe they added the growling, and maybe he was just playing. I don't know, but I thought, wow, that's pretty ballsy. Yeah. We got a few comments. Do we want to?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, let's say. So I've got Richard L. says they're heading. Him and Katie are heading on a 3-week road trip starting next week. Apparently, they're not going to Walley World. So is it really a road trip?
Second biggest ball of twine.
Yeah.
House of mud.
Katie did hear me talking about Jolt. I want Katie to watch it just to have her report back to us on the baby test and its relevance to that bit. Well, excuse me. And then last but certainly not least, Dragon Movie Guy in the house. DMG, good to see you here, man.
Yes, yeah. I think that's the new Quentin Tarantino movie. It's called Samurai Sword Fight in a Maternity Ward. So, 2 hours of action.
Action. Thrills, spills.
And near misses.
And the changing of diapers with a very large pin remover. All right. I do. It's not. There isn't a story here, like not a. Except the. It is. It's a. It's the. There's not a story. It's a series of anecdotes one could say about a horrible trip to somewhere, and each kind of segment is just like the storytelling is within each segment, not in the whole movie. It really is almost like an excuse to tell these little, but they're not skits. You do see a sort of logical progression. Like, although the characters don't grow, they do look worn by the journey. They're not growing. They don't change. Like even he's in the pool naked with Christie Brinkley, and his wife shows up, and then later she's like, "Oh, it's partly my fault too." It's like, no, it isn't. Yeah. But and again, like this character could be seen as unrealistic, except that I think we know this guy and we've met this family. Mm-hmm. The dad who just always has to end the answer. They made their houses out of mud. No, they didn't. They did it out of sod. And when they ran out of sod, they made it out of mud. That, again, not a huge blowhard, but that one who just can't, doesn't listen. At no time, it's, Anthony Michael Hall, Rusty's like Hawaii. It's like, Walley World, even at the end, we wanted to go to Hawaii. He's not paying attention. His wife is forever the voice of reason. Say, let's just skip this. Let's do, even when they crash in the middle of nowhere in the desert, she is the one who's, Rusty, you gather this up. You do this. Well, he's standing on the top and then just started buggers off into the middle of nowhere.
I had the subtitles on.
We know this guy.
I had the subtitles on and just trudge across the desert. And sometimes when you have the subtitles on, you catch lines you might have missed otherwise. And so he's sort of he's getting rid of, he's obviously sort of overheating. So he's throwing parts of clothing off, and he goes, "My wrist is hot. My wrist is hot." And he takes his watch and throws it off. It was sort of a mumbled line that I might have missed if I didn't have the subtitles on. But it was
here, before we move into the meaning, I did what? Let's a couple of items. One, first, Vlad65 says he read they didn't want the script because no real story. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Like, I mean, the studios are like, well, there's no story here. That isn't quite. It's Warner Brothers. Like, so what goes to Paramount? Paramount doesn't want it, or one of those. And then the next one's, well, there's no story here. Well, it's a road movie, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of a gross oversimplification of we have Chevy Chase attached. It'll all work out.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing. We know comedy. So I don't think it was quite as simple as the way Simmons is describing it. Mm-hmm. Like it was his charm or whatever. I'm sure there's we got this guy attached. A guy that they knew from that whole scene, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's sort of just a big ball rolling downhill, right? For something that's so episodic, it actually moves, I thought, fairly well. Like, you go from, and the gags
it's
are pretty
a 99-minate movie.
Yeah.
They do not waste any time.
When they drive up to the A&W, like A&W for those who don't, fast food burger joint up here in Canada, you used to be able to drive up and the waitress would bring you out your tray and you'd roll down your window and they'd hang it on. Yeah, the car hop thing.
You mean a 50s trope from the United States?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But,
it's good you're explaining that.
Well, Shashank may not have been to A&W in the past. I don't know who's watching, who's lurking, but they just hang the tray on your window, of course. On the metallic Pete truckster, the glass shatters and it falls to the ground. Scene ends.
But it's not
the next thing.
But like again, it's not they don't hang it on. He does the new car. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Always it's always just a setup for him once again, like the lemon he bought, this ridiculous thing that he didn't want. That the fast again. I think it's all part of the emasculation of the character.
Yeah.
But he's like, remember, he makes a bit of a show of the, no, I'll do it. And he gently puts it on and then it just shatters. And then they stick to it. Remember the raining and he's telling the whole family you're all fucked in the head.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And it's a plastic sheet over that window. That window's gone. Every bit of damage done to the car stays.
Yeah.
Like the honky graffiti lips, which is like, whoa, just so terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. But going back to, DMG, by the 80s, they were, I think all those drive-ins, even the one on Portage, had turned into a drive-through.
Mm-hmm. They were cool.
I remember when as a kid, you could still remember the folks go to a drive-in theater, but maybe go to the A&W on the way on Portage and drive in, and a car hop would come, and you get the root beers in the mugs.
Yeah.
Just never saw them on roller skates, which was more of a brief American fad.
Yes, yeah.
The Vlad65 says, yes, improves. Yeah, it's not too long, but at the same time, it will have moments. Like, it'll have enough, like, you can have a moment of calming down. Like, it's not all mayhem either. Like, they can do the just interpersonal, quieter bit. You think Mom's gonna buy that?
Good talk, Russ.
Even before that, where Rusty and Audrey are talking, and it's, I better go talk to him. Like, it's the boy that's gonna be the better go.
Yeah.
Like, they know who their dad is, and they're not cruel to him.
No. They gotta roll their eyes when they're singing and stuff, but it's not like an open disdain.
Well, unlike, again, like the later, like, I don't think it's the performers. I think it's where the direction they went with all these characters, where they're cruel to everybody, and Clark is like this kind of sort of man of the people hero, where it's like, no, I think there's more bite in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard does say all the car damage stays except the ultra wobbly tires. I just got the impression that there was a one-off line where they got that fixed after they left the Hustlers. But yeah, maybe it's just they went, screw it. We need this car to do more, and so we'll straighten them up. And then of course, Vlad 65 and the tragedy of Randy Quaid actually becoming the character he played. They certainly became crazy.
Yeah. American Star Whackers and, that whole...
Just insanity.
The whole business. But, just one quick thing about the kids is that the thing that's interesting is that as typically shown, they're fighting. Oh, Russ did this. Oh, Audrey did that. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. But at the end, they're sort of comforting each other too. So they've actually got like a fully realized relationship. For a comedy, for National Lampoon road comedy, surprisingly realized. They show both sort of sides of it.
Yeah. Well, they all had something to do.
Yeah.
I think the other, because it's interesting because the goofball really is. The goofball is Clark Griswold. He's the comic. He is that spice. Everyone else is the stew.
Yeah.
Everyone else has to be the foil. The voice of reason. The family's the stew. Except for Antenna, all these other characters that are brought in mostly just to make sure that we don't start to hate Clark Griswold.
Yeah.
Because I think if you took them out of the equation, all of a sudden it's Clark Griswold is a deluded jerk.
Yeah.
So why don't we let's get into the meeting, Jim. The meaning. Oh, not story. The meaning. What was the point to the piece?
Oops. Oh, just sorry. Small earthquake there. I think it just the deluded man with a vision. I think that's sort of and what does the persistence that it takes to, despite all the obstacles. It's funny that it ends, and I thought I thought the ending was a little bit abrupt. Like, you almost needed another little scene because they show them at the place and the story is resolved and they get to go in and they're on the roller coaster with the cops and all that kind of thing. Could have been could have used John Candy a little more, I think, but it ends fairly abruptly. They don't talk about it's like, so how did they get home? Like, what happened to the truckster? Like, did the truckster actually make it back to Chicago? I can't see that, but it's just that goal, right? It's that hell bent for what's the phrase? Basically Walley World or bust, I guess. That's
Clark Griswold has not heard of the fallacy of the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
He figures if he just doubles down.
And they lose tons of stuff. They lose the credit cards. They're almost out of money. He's
scammed.
He's scammed. He ends up
stealing
money from a register. And so despite all these things, he still perseveres at what cost. I think that's kind of the main part of it. But and then you could put that in any number of, like, you could say he's Captain Bligh, right? You could say he's, a man in charge of the mission with a ridiculous, sort of a ridiculous goal. Damn the consequences. It's going to happen despite what's going to happen to, my supporting cast here, or my crewmates or my family members,
Yeah. I don't think it was the original goal. Like, maybe a little ridiculous, a little lame. It's more in spite of all the disasters that he keeps going.
Yeah.
That becomes these, the almost Sisyphean.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. In terms of meaning, and I sort of wanted to talk about this too, is the role of the two women, and you can probably take this and run with it. I'm sure there's been theses written on it, but you have the mum, Beverly D'Angelo, and who's
all of 2 years older than Christie Brinkley was at the time.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And she's still like, she's not shown as a sexless hag, right? She's we're led to believe that they're still active, and much to the chagrin of Rusty and Audrey. But, and then they have this Christie Brinkley figure that comes up, and she's sort of like this, this dream girl, what have you. And as I said before, that usually it's that role that deals with the nudity and is that sort of, is the impossible dream or the unrealistic goal or what have you.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they have Beverly D'Angelo's Ellen, and she's the one that actually has a couple nude scenes, and that's kind of a reversal, I think, and that's kind of a weird thing. I don't know why that is. I don't know. I don't think there's a deeper meaning.
Could very well have been that Christie Brinkley wouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe they did, and they're like, it's not as funny. Doesn't work.
Sort of,
ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, it's playing around with a bit of that virgin whore kind of, that whole kind of thing too, which is kind of interesting. But I just thought it was a really odd kind of a reversal. But Ellen was great.
Yeah, if they reversed it, like if they were consciously thinking of the reversal there, it was maybe just there's like, let's not do the expected.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I think, though, undercuts that part is the simple, like, it's the one part you believe the suburban dad kind of overestimating his attractions and believing that, a Christie Brinkley-esque woman who smiled at him once is like, well, I still got it.
He's combing his hair down,
in your Wagon Queen family truckster with your spouse and your kids and all the crap. So that part rings true in the piece, but that it's that she actually flirts with them in that, and it's like, and this is where this is why I don't. Christie Brinkley does not have the acting skills, didn't then, doesn't now, to deliver that, to actually make it believable in any way. Because it's just not, it's like, no, woman, a Christie Brinkley, let's make her a type, even though it is Christie Brinkley in the role. Christie Brinkley in a Ferrari is not doing anything with this suburban guy unless she's got a crazy in her, or it's like, I always wanted to bang a suburban dad. Now that would have been kind of funny. But she didn't have the acting chops to deliver that if they even thought it. There's a part of me that almost thinks it's like a very national, there'll be nudity. We got a supermodel. Yeah. And they just put it in because it made great in the commercial. That was a big part of its marketing. Christie Brinkley driving up, and it's like, well, it's appealing to the 15, 16-year-old me who still remembers his Christie Brinkley poster on his wall. But beyond that, I don't think they had anything to do for her because it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the weakest parts of the whole piece is, like, it could have just been a car gag and then put it all in his mind as he's drifting off and he has this fantasy, because
and I had forgotten about that shot where he's sitting with her and I guess he pictures himself in her car and he's sitting beside her at one point, and it almost reminded me of that
smoke in her mouth, because
it almost reminded me of that Trains, Planes, and Automobiles car accident gag where he looks over and they're seeing they're basically basically seeing hallucinations, or John Candy is the devil, etc. But it was kind of an interesting little moment that I had completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and I think there, some of the stuff that happens later could have worked, but then they would have also kind of lost the bit. They would have lost the after bit, which is very funny. Of course, he gets caught, and then they would lose the whole Anthony Michael Hall. No, it's right. We all saw you. It's the welcome to the whole hotel.
Yeah.
I saw you, Dad.
It's got to be one of those 2-story ones with the doors facing the pool and everything.
Yeah, I think it was genius. DMG. Okay, so let's. We got a couple of comments on this. Okay, Vlad65 says it is also that collective experience thing that we all had family holidays with headaches that became part of beloved family lore. Absolutely. DMG, his theory on the nakedness, beyond whether or not the world's most successful supermodel was willing to do it, the movie needed to show Beverly D'Angelo's appeal of what he has at home. Since no one can realistically compete with a supermodel, I don't know, I think Beverly D'Angelo really kind of delivers. The woman, a very attractive woman. That was the film's way of saying that he already has a hot chick sitting next to him. That's as good a theory as I think any of the ones we're coming up with.
Yeah. There's a little bit of I don't know if it's can be described as an Easter egg because it's within its own movie, but when they're at Dodge City and they're going into the bar, there's a little, there's crap usually around the cash register. There's actually a suntan lotion. What's that big suntan lotion that did all the ads? Coppertone. There's a big Coppertone ad with Christie Brinkley right there that I'd never sort of noticed before.
I didn't catch that play. I'm glad you brought it up.
A neat little thing. And then Katie actually said, I hated Clark Griswold when he was harassing the bartender.
Well, it's a great bit. Even the shotgun back at him.
I'm okay.
But it also, that's what I mean. He is the villain,
Yeah.
Okay, we got a theory that apparently gets confirmed in Vegas Vacation.
Walt is the National Lampoon historian.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
anything else you want to say on the meaning, Jim?
I don't think so, but you were talking about other stuff that was sort of the
I've got stuff to say, but I want to give you a chance to go on for another 10 minutes.
Sure. No, that's why I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss that part, but yeah.
For myself, I think one of the things that bothers me, the National Lampoon, I see it in this. They punch down. They're punching down on urban problems. And I'm sure even as they were making it, they were like, no, we're not bigots. It's funny. As these guys are stealing their hubcaps, like such a lame, and maybe they thought, it's so over the top, but it's still punching down on an unrealistic, they know their market. It's not urban black people who will be watching this movie. It's white kids in the burbs. And so they're exploiting that with a whole scene that is all about how frightening, roll up the windows, kids. That idea that for a white family to drive in there, it's going to be, it's just going to be all of the horror that they showed in a comic sense. When they're getting, at every stage, they're getting ripped off by hillbillies. When they're getting ripped off, it's by hillbillies. Which is kind of a punching down sort of, the only ones who get caught a break is, American indigenous, or let's say indigenous folks of the desert,
Yeah.
Where the only time where it's somebody going, what an asshole. The only time someone actually speaks truth.
Yeah.
And I think actually shows where, and I'm moving up the chain on the punching down. But I think it's really there where we see what the filmmakers really do. They are kind of acknowledging Clark Griswold's an asshole. And I think this is National Lampoon's biggest, if they got a mean on, they got a mean on for the American suburbs of the post-war. And especially as they get later, like he's a genius at food additives. Like he's given a kind of low-grade villainous job. He's unable to stand up for himself to an obviously sleazy car dealership. He even, because you look at the 2-week thing, it's not pointed out, but even when I think when I saw it back then, it's like, yeah, these things don't close up automatically. Like they just, we're going to close for a couple of weeks. There's announcements. He didn't look into it.
Yeah.
It didn't do that. Like he is at all times like, no, Father knows best. And I think that is, if there is a bite, and that's what I mean, there's bite. It's still kind of punching down, but there's a bite to it. They're going after that Father's knows best, because I think they all grew up with these folks, and they're like, yeah, John Hughes had a much gentler opinion of these guys in his later films, but I think the National Lampoon, they really did think that the suburbanites were all worthy of mocking, and the most worthy of being mocked was the suburban paterfamilias. The fathers know his best. It's, no, he doesn't. He makes it up. He lies. He sticks to it no matter how ridiculous the demand is. He will drag everyone into ruin. Never once saying, I got to stop what I'm doing here. And I think that is who they're really going after. And it's said by the indigenous dude to his buddy in that one moment of like, there's the theme of the movie. What an asshole.
They're just watching him, yeah.
Just kind of acknowledging him as an asshole. And I think that's who they're going after. And
also, who buys a car the day before you go on a big trip? Like that.
Well, has it delivered then? And even then, who doesn't kind of go, okay, we're like his wife, right at the beginning, let's just take a plane. That's not the car we ordered. Wait the 6 weeks. Like, yeah, this asshole just won't give up. At every stage, he always makes the wrong choice.
Yeah.
At his own detriment. And some of it his own ego. Like his own sons, this is not the car you ordered, Dad.
Yeah.
And he lets the car dealership bully him into it, which is, again, part of that emasculating choice the filmmakers made. They want this guy to look bad. They want this guy to, get bullied. Like he gets bullied all the time. Like he never, it's only at the end pressure that he charms Roy Walley.
Yeah.
Which is like, what?
Yeah, but it's that pressure that they put on the hero or the lead character that or the anti-hero or what have you, that is what create, movies are about conflict, right? So this is the first of several conflicts that he encounters, and it starts off on the wrong foot immediately, right?
Yeah. Later films.
Why is the car still running, Clark? All new cars do that.
Yeah, that lying, that constant lying to maintain his status as the dad, the father knows best. The Vlad says, no way, Ward Cleaver was not an asshole. First of all, Walt, I did not say that. Although I suspect if we were in one of the National Lampoon's writing rooms, I bet you they could probably make us all laugh our ass off as they crap on Ward Cleaver. I'm not saying that Ward Cleaver's an asshole, although there's a lot of problems with the Beeve and that whole worldview. Mm-hmm. I am saying that the filmmakers were going after this suburban dad, that as an idea. And I think that's exactly what they weren't necessarily going after Ward Cleaver, but they were going after decades of this idea that dad knows best. And it's like, no, I've known a lot of idiot fathers. Yeah. Grew up with one. Like already the 60s and 70s had happened where there was that big pushback on that idea of a patriarchal nuclear family. Like this really is the only reason the family's together and held together at all. You can't, but you could make a kind of weird feminist argument that it's like, yeah, if it wasn't for Ellen, this family doesn't make it at all. The only reason these kids are on the ball is they went, well, we love dad, but yeah, no, we'll listen to mom. Mom is the one who gets us to do stuff to keep the machine going.
Yeah.
So dad is the one who takes us into terrible journeys that we may still kind of enjoy, but,
Yeah.
We'll live our lives like mom wants us to do. Anyway. I think even, Walt says, kidding aside, yes, there are a lot of dads we grow up with who have the I know everything curse. And heck, I think it's something, especially there's a gender pressure on guys because I've certainly pulled shit out of my ass that it's like, I'm like, I don't know why I said that. Apparently I just felt I needed to say something because a question was asked, even though I know nothing of the subject. So and this is what I mean. I think what I mean by the punch down, because I don't think they ever acknowledge that this is maybe very much a human problem, or especially a male problem, you know, at least in North American culture, that, there is a pressure on men to fill in the blank, regardless of their knowledge. There is an ounce of truth in the whole, a guy won't ask for directions. Mm-hmm. Until he's in a hood and they're like, oh, this would be an opportunity to make fun of a ghetto and a white family in a ghetto.
And that's why it's interesting that in movies like Black Widow that we took a look at a couple of weeks ago is that there isn't that character necessarily David Harbour's father character. It's second to third act where he turns into a doofus.
Yeah. First act, competent secret agent.
Yeah.
Him and his wife working as a team.
But not really a trustworthy kind of, square-jawed father figure that you can sort of rely on in the whole movie, really. But, so a little bit of a departure from that. Certainly if you look back, there's oodles of movies where there were strong male characters, and you're starting to see movies now where there are, or TV shows or miniseries or whatever that are devoid of sort of like they depict masculinity as falling apart basically, or
I don't know. I think we've seen a couple in this experiment of ours. Mm-hmm. One of the more recent, Love and Monsters, but I can go back to Christmas Crossfire, which is really a deconstruction in some ways. You got that main character who's literally going, you're all morons, you're all idiots. This is not the way to be a guy.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a brilliant kind of, here's an example of terrible toxic masculinity, and here's the takedown. This is all takedown, or not even a takedown. This is, I can't call it a feminist piece. Like there's a picking on the suburban dad without providing any, if they are, they're blaming it on something else.
Yeah.
They're not kind of really going deeper. Mind you, it's National Lampoon. They lampoon things. Yeah. It's not the National Review or the National Social Critic. The National Critical Theory.
National Lampoon of books.
Yeah. Exactly. Got a couple more comments on this. DMG says, he'd postulate since the whole flick is told from Clark's POV, the fact that the kids change every movie is not a mistake. The film is a dad POV. What he wants, the kids are irrelevant. I don't think so, though. I think it's not a dad it's about the dad, but it's not. It is a third-party observer. He's not an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
We actually do get a bit of when he's not there. The gags don't work if he's an unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm. And I
Lad
think the kids
65
are given enough to do.
Oh.
I think the kids are given enough to do.
And we see the kids, we see the family separate from him.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, part of the comedy is he is not understanding the situation he's in. It's the other players that do, whether they're exploiting him or trying to protect him. It's, we are with all the other characters knowing exactly what's going on. Walt's the only one who doesn't. Vlad says, John Wayne in Yellow Ribbon, quote, never apologize. It is a sign of weakness. Close quote. Guys lived by that. Well, and I think there's 10 years at City Hall, I know a number of people who firmly believe that. Both elected officials and senior bureaucrats. Here's an interesting. Okay, so DMG and Vlad are talking about how the kids are interchangeable. That they're part of the gag. I got to push back on that. I think the only time the kids are actually relevant and important and they're making good movies is in the first one. The rest are cash grabs where they are interchangeable, but more from a production sense. It's like, I don't care. Can the guy do it? It's Chevy and Beverly are the only two people we need.
Is he younger than Chevy?
And the later movies start picking on the kids, making them less competent, Yeah. But, and how much of that is by then Anthony Michael Hall either aged out or mid-80s. He was making some great films. He was becoming a star himself.
Yeah.
But I think that's given the makers of the later vacation films way too much credit.
And I frankly, I don't know. I didn't do any kind of deep dive on the other ones, or even modicum of research.
Christmas Vacation, I remember as being entertaining.
There are several movies, and there's actually, I was going to mention this earlier too, is that there's the Ed Helms remake that they just did a few years ago. I remember
DMG's going deep on this theory about Clark not noticing his kids are different. Okay, anyway, sorry, Jim, continue.
As James Joyce once said, no, I'm just kidding. There's the Ed Helms remake, and I'm not sure if it's a remake or sort of a continuation. Does he play Rusty?
It's a remake.
I remember I remember watching it and thinking that it was fine. Not fine in the in the European film sense of the word, but it was okay. It was a decent enough entertainment, but I don't really recall much about it other than Ed Helms was in it. But sort of a little bit of a.
It is a continuation. Ed Helms plays Rusty.
He does, eh? Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I didn't think it was. I didn't see it. I don't think I'll ever see it. Why would I see it?
I think it's one of those things where where you can't agree on anything. As and with me and my wife, you always have the spouse veto. No, go watch that with Rob or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I might have went, but it's like, no. Go find another chump.
Yeah.
Take one of your kids. Make them.
Yeah.
I think the everyone after the first one was just, well, we have a property. We got a funny guy. Beverly's still up for it. Sure.
Yeah.
whatever ridiculous situations can we put him in? You know? What about, now I don't think this is a point or a meaning, but it goes back to that punching down that I'm uncomfortable with, the subtext, those unintended meanings. Jane Krakowski delivers, it's like, I remember laughing in the theater. Now it's like, oh, I don't feel good. I need to wash my mouth out.
Oh, that kissing line.
Yeah, the kissing gag. And my daddy says I'm the best, which I'm sure I repeated multiple times when talking about the film.
Yeah.
I do. Again, it's part of that punching down. Like, they're hillbillies. And he's that lazy, unemployed hillbilly who always has a health problem and, you know, kind of a shameless. You know, there's this element of looking at poor people as, you know, like when you're going to talk about a movie about, or if poor people are going to be in a movie, they're either the noble downtrodden in squalor or these comic con artists where, you know, it's too many kids because they can't not have 8 kids. It's always a hustle, and it's this ridiculous caricature of a con artist. This is not to say that no poor person has ever tried to con someone, but it's like over a can of soup or something, you know? And I do, and going back to that hillbilly, you know, the sleeping with the cousin, you know, daughter, and, you know, like, and it's just kind of like, now gross. At the time, I can't lie, I was 16, I thought it was hilarious, you know. But I think that's where the ick factor comes in, as they're picking on these people. And you know what? Again, they're more like collateral damage to, you know, the Clark, like, forever coming back to Clark, you know, and this family, right? But what did you think?
Well, and even, you know, John, there's a lot of similarities, I think. I got sort of whiffs of John Hughes writing, and in both the good sense and the bad sense. I think that Christie, like, he's always got these, or he seems to often have these dream figures, or these in his stories, or these sort of these aspirational kind of goals, usually in the form of a beautiful person, right? And that's the sort of the Christie Brinkley character. And then you're talking about this, and I was just, you know, punching down, and I'm thinking about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is, you know, a few years later, and he's directing this time, and you have the you know, the guy said, you know, you got any bags? The guy with the nose thing, and he goes, honey, get the, you know, she's a pregnant woman is hauling the luggage of John Candy and Steve Martin, and they're like, oh no, it's okay. But that is, you know, that's kind of a similar dig, right? Where you're sort of making fun of the poor folk too. So well, talking about people that maybe haven't grown from their experience.
Well, I think he was still getting into that. Although over time, at least, like John Candy's character in that put the same basics of the character, John Candy, and he would have been someone conning Clark Griswold 5 years before. I think that Hughes's characterization of poor people did mature a bit. Still not, I don't think any of his films I would call class conscious. That said, I think he had more, he grew to have more sympathy, like a little less kind of, oh, am I making, again, you know, I think all these, and it's still John Candy, it's still effing genius. John Hughes. He was a genius then, genius in the middle part, genius in the later part. I will allow, though, that he probably was like kind of, was I that? You know, it was funny, but I wasn't. It was like a teenager. You know, the things we thought were funny as teenagers in our 20s, like, that was a little nasty. Yeah. You know, you get a little older and you start to kind of go, you're a little more gentle to those folks and a little more, the zingers are more on you.
Yeah, yeah.
You mature, and I think that's all we saw is that John Hughes started to mature. But yeah, it's and again, when I talk about class consciousness, that's why I do like to put it in a category and talk about the meaning and everything, that subtext. But at the same time, I'm not expecting National Lampoon to. It's the National Lampoon, not the national. It's not the national farmer labor, culture critique. It's not Cahiers du Cinema.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't want to be, why didn't they do that? Although I wanted to ask you this, Jim. I wrote before we started watching the movie. Let's see if I can make sense. All right. There was a part of me as I was thinking about it, thinking about my memory, and then I was like, you got one. The movie really is like one family's journey to an off-brand Disney World. It's kind of this ideal, and I know, like, I have family members, it's like this idea of going to Disneyland, like this big, important family moment. Like, you really are you're doing it right if you can at least once take the family to Disneyland. That's a real, and although it's not pointed obviously, that I think that's part of what's driving the Clark's character is that I am a good dad, as Ellen says, a saint with children. I am a good dad. I am a good father and family man if I have the wherewithal and the desire to pack up my kids and go to Disneyland and bring the kids and give them that once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
And I wrote this, so I wrote that, and I was like, it's almost like, so you got this ideal middle class ideal, pop culture ideal that's sort of been drilled into so many people that, I've got family members like really wanted to do that because it's a sign of you've kind of made it in a way, or you're doing right culturally, which is like, it's an amusement park. And I thought to myself, is this, is it really kind of a deep satire of the American family middle class, petty bourgeois desires or something? And so the question I ask, I think we've kind of answered that question. It isn't. Could there have been a better, if it was more of a black comedy, could it have been a better film? Could it have been something that people talk about as a great cultural critique? Was there a missed opportunity here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know if you recall ever reading National Lampoon, but there was this sort of...
Not that I was just super big on it. Like, I read enough to be aware of it.
There was, and as Walt is saying, as Vlad65 is saying here, all true, but National Lampoon comedy, magazine included, could be very, very nasty. Animal House was supposed to have a pail shot through JFK head on a float before it got pulled.
They were...
That's not too many years after, So yeah, I mean, I remember bringing down issues to the lake and reading them, in the, just as I was settling down for the night and just going, like reading some nasty joke, and I learned a few things too. But it was very oddly illuminating in a nasty way. So I think, was it a missed opportunity? I don't think you're going to get what a magazine is several collection, 2-3 page long.
But I'm talking about the film, though.
Yeah, but it, the genesis of it, comes from the magazine. So I think, were these people capable of something a little more deep?
I don't think they were capable of it.
No.
I'm not. That's not quite what I'm going after here, Jim. I'm saying, was there a missed opportunity? Imagine you could go back and kind of and I don't think it would take much, change the ending. You know, one of the reasons the election has so much more bite. I'm talking about, was it late 90s, Reese Witherspoon and, oh, come on.
Matthew Broderick.
Thank you, Matthew Broderick. And it's got a down note ending. He is a tragic character. He blows up, and he should blow up. Mm-hmm. The bad person wins, and she's kind of a nasty little piece of work. But it's got a hook, and it follows through on it is biting. And Vlad says, if it had been, quote, more important, close quote, it would have been less popular. Oh, absolutely. It to end on a down note is to, kind of risk something. I'm just saying it could have been was there a missed opportunity, even if these were not the filmmakers to make it? Yeah, Harold Ramis, I don't think in anything he ever did was, ooh, let's go dark.
Yeah. Or too dark, yeah.
Or is it? Maybe it is. Maybe that's it. It's the wrong question to ask because of the people who did make it.
Yeah.
It's and going back to one of the things that really bugged the crap out of me about Nomadland is they could have made a film that went next level and didn't, and they were the players who could have. Yeah. And, mind you, I think they're blind or their own class biases kind of show through in that. But I can be harsher to that than I can be to this because I'm like kind of, National Lampoon was going to do that. As biting as, and you guys are all right. Yeah, they could. National Lampoon could be biting, but it really wasn't, I don't think, class aware. Like they were not. They weren't making social commentary. There were things they didn't like. And because they were all really children of the bourgeoisie, they're all Harvard and Yale's and the odd one who slipped in from New York University, NYU, some of these lesser schools like Princeton. I think, they had some great commentary, but very much bound in their class, and they could be very biting on what they thought were moral. I think they could be very biting, but it wasn't like you're going for, are you reading National Lampoon and going, wow, that's changed my perspective on where I fit in the world? Or are you coming out of National Lampoon going, yeah, this is all bullshit, man?
Yeah.
I think that they're, it's all bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yay, nay. No. All right.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry. I'm dumping a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to.
Yeah. Can you phrase that in a question? No, I'm just kidding. But it's at the same time, it's a summer comedy, right? So I can imagine the notes that went back to the producer to the to the creators, would sort of counter some of that.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think that would be these guys anyway. Mm-hmm. There could have been more, but these were not the filmmakers to make it more.
Yeah.
Okay, I can answer my question both ways, actually, I guess. I do think there's another film here that could have, with minor changes, could have really been something that, maybe not as popular on the day, but let's be honest, Blade Runner was not that popular when it came out. Yeah. It is only over time that it built reputation to a point where we're still talking about it. National Lampoon, this might be the most serious treatment it's received, Jim, in decades. States. You know? Oh my goodness. Speaking of which, we're going late. Okay. First of all, let's talk about I know what I'll be watching next week.
Yes.
What I'll be next weekend and what I'll be analyzing. But Jim, why don't you tell us anyway? Give me a second here. Why don't you tell us what movie people should be getting ready for next weekend? Here, let me give you the screen, my friend.
Well, with the opening of the theaters and a little bit, that kind of action, I'm going to be in transit, so that's I'm going to be missing next week's show. But the next movie they're looking at, is The Green Knight, which is released in theaters this weekend, apparently. So. Something that I've been looking forward to. I probably will watch it. I don't think I'll get a chance to watch it until after the holiday weekend in Canada. I'm not sure if it's a holiday weekend in the States, but the first weekend in August is usually a holiday weekend. So I'll probably be seeing it fairly soon, but just
you know what? If you have a chance to see it this weekend, Jim.
Yeah.
Maybe what we can do is do a quick recording before you leave BC. We can do a quick recording of your quick review. Just get the 2-minute that out of the way. And then, but we do have a guest. We have a guest co-host. We do have a pinch hitter. Do you want to announce that right now, Jim?
Certainly.
He might be in the chat.
He might be in the chat unless it's changed. So we have a Dragon Movie Guy is going to be co-hosting with Rob next week. And with all his exclamation marks and ellipses
and his zingers. Be different, but another man who can deliver the zinger, much like you can, Jim. Different style, but still the same good comedy.
Yeah, he's got the Vegas angle.
Yeah.
All right.
And as he says here, will be fun pitch hitting for Jim. Woot, 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 woot. And he's looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to it. And DMG, thanks so much for being willing to pinch hit for Jim.
Bringing some of that Jackie Mason energy, Vegas energy. R.I.P. R.I.P. Jackie.
You know, we're going to work through their whole chat as being guest co-host. Katie's done it a couple of times. Vlad and I are talking about a collaboration to follow. He's, of course, got a busy slate, but DMG, a great regular guest on our show, and really looking forward to him helping us out next weekend with The Green Knight. All right, Jim, let's see if we can't finish this off in 5 minutes here. What about... Okay, no, we don't want that. What do you think? Does this flick hold up?
With with some with a little bit of a codicil there. I mean, there's some touchy stuff. I think the animal
the
thing
trigger warning needs to be there.
Yeah, the dog thing could have been way worse. They handled it fairly, bloodlessly. But definitely the racial stuff, the punching down. You're absolutely right about that. But if you're going to watch it at all, watch it for to see Chevy Chase at the start of his career, and the supporting cast is actually pretty solid too. Not as strong, of course, and they're given not as the camera's not on them 75% of the time, but. It's definitely it's so when he was in Community and left Community, he was sort of back nine of his career. This is the front nine. Sure, he might have been an asshole, but he did have some talent. So it's all on display there. A good physical comedian.
Again, to say to Vlad, it's like, are the theaters not open in BC?
It might just be a schedule thing there.
And
of
comes
course,
out next weekend.
Yeah, but also might be a crowd thing. I think I don't think Vlad likes the big crowds, but
I don't think you're seeing any big crowds in a theater.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
for some time.
Yeah,
like
that's
I
what
was in there with a half a dozen people on Friday night.
Yeah.
For a big superhero movie.
Yeah.
This is an A24 art piece. Vlad, I think you went on a matinee. It is going to be you and 3 other oldsters hanging out, enjoying this flick.
Yeah.
But I do understand if you got to skip it because of the chance of you not having seen it. All right. Back to does it hold up? For me, I was a lot more ready. I wasn't sure what I was going to say until we had this conversation. I got to say, yeah, I can say it. It mostly does. It has a couple of moments. It's where it's like, whoa. And there is that punching down. Like there are legitimate criticisms of this film. But and it's not even at the beginning of his career. I do argue, Jim, I think it's where this is just after like right at the high end of his career. It's all downhill after here.
Yeah.
I don't think he makes Caddyshack is maybe one of the best films, like as he's really starting to move up, but the 80s were not kind to him. And
well, he did one that he felt was undermarketed. What was that one? I think he's an innkeeper in that one. And, that was sort of post-success. And yeah, he might have burnt his own bridges too. He was in a Goldie Hawn sort of adventure rom-com. He had his shots, I think. And,
but this was like at the height of his career, not at the beginning. Like, he did. But you saw his physical comedy chops and like his willingness to look stupid.
Yeah.
Like he's aware of the character he's playing, but he's never winking at the audience, which I think this kind of buffoon can't.
Yeah,
He can't, and he doesn't. And that he delivers it without irony. There's what is it? The St. Louis Arch? St. Louis Arch? And he's like, it is 60 stories high to you and I, kids. Are we going up it, Dad? No, we aren't, Rusty. Just keep driving.
But ball and second biggest ball of twine are on the schedule.
On the list. And so, yeah, I think for that, but I think for the other performances, again, you see Anthony Michael Hall, like already, like preternaturally talented, charming, and holding his own with Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
Knowing how to deliver. Just wow. Dana Barron was great. Like all the bit players doing their bit, everyone delivers. Not a weak one, except for I gotta say, I think Christie Brinkley, and maybe that isn't even. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. They didn't quite know how to make the Christie Brinkley bit work.
No.
But yeah, it holds up. I think there's enough good comedy there to use it as an argument and say, yeah, some comedy doesn't age well, and that didn't, and that didn't. But a lot of the other stuff works. And it's still that we can mine the meaning out of this that we have been able to, even at this late a date, shows it's a pretty solid flick. So, yeah, I got to say, again, with an asterisk, it holds up.
How many times after seeing this several times in the course of your life, how many times were you still like, I open mouth belly laughed a number of times during this, and
some of the physical bits were great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they're all falling asleep, and he's Clark, turn off the TV, come to bed.
Yeah. Even the subtle stuff like, Clark, we haven't even looked at the Grand Canyon. Okay. And there are several references, and I still make them, and that's, I think, a sign of something. Anyway, about 3 or 4 in this movie alone.
Holmes. I didn't know it came from that. I thought I picked that up later. But
Yeah.
that, like, from my teenage years, like, yeah, I think it is a solid, it's good. So any final thoughts?
I think we covered it. It certainly was a blast from the past. I'm just looking at my notes here. I think we got it all. And I have to think that Harold Ramis, he improved and matured himself as a director as time went on. But the
guy delivered Groundhog Day.
Yeah, oh yeah,
which is a deep movie that's still funny.
Oh yeah. And I have to say, my wife and I saw the musical in New York, and it was one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. Any genre.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Last minute. Look at this, Ahmed Jelly Duck. Good to see you here, man. Walt is bidding us adieu. Adieu. Here, talking. Some of our folks talking about longevity of some of these players. And this is a great point. DMG says most comedians have 5 to 7 years at the top of their game. Even Will Ferrell hasn't had a hit in 13 years since Step Brothers. Did he make, though, that self-narrative one?
Stranger Than Fiction.
Stranger Than Fiction. I think that was made later, or was it earlier?
Maybe around the same time. I think.
Great
movie.
Now.
I don't know if it was a hit, but it's a solid film.
It was super solid. 2006.
Okay. So, wow.
And then he adds, Chevy Chase was never the same after lip syncing to Paul Simon. And Katie says, Chevy been on top since Hot Tub Time Machine. Was he in Hot Tub Time Machine?
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I saw it. I actually liked it. I wonder if he had like a guest or a cameo in that.
Mm-hmm.
He was in it. I don't even remember that he was in it. Says to me that he was not driving it. It was like a part he had. Yeah. John Cusack, of course, was the lead in that. Yeah, I think they had him do something. DMG says, Katie Fowler, I'd put that one when one reaches and Chevy Chase status. Like he's he's not driving it. He wasn't the star, wasn't a co-star even.
Yeah.
Oh, he was. Oh, yeah. DMG, who's the hot tub repairman. The magical old man who think Don Knotts in Pleasantville.
Yeah.
One who screws with the machine and makes it magic. And
yeah.
So, yes, he's perhaps a herald of adventure, but any good comic actor could have done it.
Yes, yeah.
Which makes me think, Chevy needed a check. But thanks for that little trip down recent memory lane. It's like, was he even in it? Well, apparently was. And DMG showing that he's ready for the main show.
There we go.
Okay, everyone. First of all, thank you all so much for joining us. Another great show. Sorry for running 15 minutes and counting late, but we really do appreciate you coming by, contributing in the chat. Love the debate, love the arguing. And apparently Rob can't take a joke because this is I think the second or third time where I'm like, I disagree. And people later, I didn't mean Ward Cleaver was a great guy. Katie, I didn't mean he was driving anything. Well, then apparently I need to think about it before I react. But thanks for that clarification, Katie. But yes, thank you all so very, very much.
Thank
Of
you.
course, Katie, Richard, DMG, Walt, if you haven't left already, Jelly Duck, Ahmed, thanks for coming by. Again, you guys are what makes this the best chat on the internet. Shashank, thank you very much. Thanks for being a co-host last week. Looking forward to you co-hosting in just a couple weeks' time as we do Bahubali 2, The Conclusion. And I think I got everyone in the chat, Jim?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Well, then, my friend, I guess it's about time to, move the machine forward. Maybe bring down the tunes. We'll both wave goodbye as I cue the credits.